You're listening to Release Your Resistance with Bex Beltran, episode 110. Welcome to Release Your Resistance. This is Bex. The only reason why any of us don't have what we want in life is because of our own resistance. Right now, I'm learning how to recognize and release my resistance, and this podcast tells you how you can release your resistance so that you can live the exact life that you want. Let's get started. Really quick, before we go to the episode, I wanted to tell you about today's featured notebook. So we are going to mention 7 networking here in today's episode. So today's featured notebook is Networking, Relationships, and Connections, Getting to Know You. This one was inspired by one of our former guests on the show, Karen Josephs, who is the founder of the networking group called 7. She asked me, couldn't we have a notebook where we can ask certain questions that kind of help with a relationship or help to kind of remember people or help to follow up with people. So this is the notebook that came out of that conversation. It's great if you go to networking events or if you tend to meet a lot of people, maybe clients, maybe people who you just want to further relationships with. It has got a really fun, bright, orange-ish cover. It's kind of got some sparkly, some star looks to it. It's just a fun notebook, and the cover is glossy. That means you can have it with you if you're in a restaurant or if you're holding a drink and the cover won't get ruined. I mean, unless you totally submerge it in water, but it can get a little wet and you can just wipe it off. You can get a link for this notebook at bexb.org/quickshop. So go look for the networking notebook now. Now let's go to the episode. Thank you for joining me for another Release Your Resistance episode. I am so glad you're here, especially if you're here for the first time, because maybe you heard about Suki and Courage Rises. We'll get to that in a minute. Or if you are a longtime fan of the show, welcome back. Thank you for listening to this episode too. I'm especially excited today because one of our longtime listeners and one of my longtime friends of the show is Suki Jeffries, and she launched her book this week. So she graciously made time to come on the podcast so that we could talk about her new book. So I cannot wait for you to hear our conversation. Let's go to the interview. Hey, Suki, how's it going?
Hey, Bex, it's been a while.
It has been, and I am so excited to talk with you this week, especially because you have something really fun happening. Before we get to that, I guess, because not everyone knows you the way I know you,
Right.
Do you mind introducing yourself and just telling us your story?
My name is Susan. So if you're looking for me on Facebook, I'm Susan Jeffries, although everything that I have for my business, Courage Rises, is under Suki. And I am a retired technology professional. I was doing that for 30 plus years, and I retired when I was 59. I kind of set off to figure out what I wanted to do with the rest of my life because, you know, I'm healthy and I probably have 2 or 3 decades to go, and I wasn't ready to stop and slow down. So I started a business at 60, and I've just recently wrote a book, which is what we're going to talk about. But I do want to preface it by saying, you and I met through networking, and through 7 networking, I started listening to your podcast, Release Your Resistance. I started from the first episode of the first season, and I loved it. And it really changed my life in that I loved all your lessons, but you also introduced me to Byron Katie, to Brooke Castillo, and Brooke especially, spent some time in her online coaching program, and, just a really, really good stuff. And I wanted to say thank you for being who you are and for introducing all that great stuff into my life.
Oh, thank you. Wow. That's so nice to hear. Yes, of course. I knew that you were a listener of my podcast, but I had kind of forgotten a little bit too. So that is amazing. Yeah, that's
and
so great.
my husband and I binged listened to you on a motorhome trip home from Colorado or somewhere. Yeah,
Okay.
Santa Fe. Yeah, he loves
There
it
you
too.
go. So there you go. It's open to many different types of people
Yep.
and it's bingeable. So if anyone is just
Oh yeah.
listening to this episode as your first or second episode, go back and listen to all the rest too. Why
Oh
not?
yeah. They're so good. They're so full of value.
Oh, I love that. And speaking of Seven, the way that we met through Seven Networking, we did have an episode with an interview of the founder of Seven, Karen Josephs, when
Oh
she
yes.
launched her Tea Story
Tea
journal,
story.
right?
Yes.
So yeah, all these launches. So you're launching a book. Let's
Yes.
talk about it. What
Okay.
is going on with this book?
So it's called Courage Rises, which coincidentally is the name of my company. And the subtitle is How to Create the Life You Want by Leaning into Fear. That jives with resistance, release your resistance, because I had a lot of that to deal with. I was thinking about how to refine my message, because this is a second, if you will, second career for me. And becoming a coach, I was like, well, what should I be concentrating on and that sort of thing? She said, write a book because it'll help you refine your message. And it really, really did. It started out with the way I named my company was I was doing a mastermind. And one of the exercises, I call it What the Hell's So Great About You, but it's really was called, what makes you unique. And the word that I kept writing down was courage, and I'd circle it and put stars around it because when I was 23, I broke up a marriage engagement, a wedding engagement, and one of my friends called me brave. And I hadn't ever considered that before. And, when I started thinking about it and mulling it around in my mind, I realized it was brave because society, at least where I was from in the socioeconomic background that I come from, it's like you go to high school, you go to college, you meet somebody, you get married, have a career, start a family, do all of those things. And I was sort of kicking that out. I was kind of kicking that idea out. So I decided that I was brave and I just naturally integrated it into who I believed I was. And so as I started writing about Courage Rises, I did that same kind of exercise, like what makes you unique? Why do you think, why is courage important to you? What have you done that you think is especially courageous? So I started making that list and I realized I had a lot of stories to tell. And they weren't just about making a courageous decision and following through. They were about being afraid of it too. So it's really, you can't have courage without fear. You definitely can learn courage. Fear is just, we all have it. It keeps us from doing what we want and getting what we want out of life. As you always say, you want to release your resistance. My resistance is fear-based. And so I started writing down the stories. So the book is half stories, my courage stories, and then half ways that you can lean into fear, ways to work with your fear so that you can push through to the other side.
So basically, for someone who is like, great, sounds good, but how do I do it? Then you give some
Yes.
examples of that. Okay,
Yes.
nice.
Yes. And I've got 5 techniques that are really kind of tried and true. They're very simplified techniques from psychologists all over the world.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah. So one of them is understanding your motivators. And you and I in the business world, we know this as what's your why? Why are you doing this? Why do you want it? And it's really important because you can have a kind of superficial why or motivator. And when things get hard, it's not really going to motivate you through that. So, I recommend that people write down why they're doing something and like go 10 layers deep. Write down my why. Well, my why is because I love to entertain. Well, why do you like that? Well, it makes me feel good to bring my friends and family together. Why do you like that? Because family is, blah, blah, blah. And it just keep going deeper and deeper.
Yeah, that is such a great exercise. And it sounds like you're supporting the idea of journaling in that case too,
Well,
even if it's not called that, right?
I am actually not a huge journaler. I journal when there's a purpose, like when I feel like I need to do it. I do have a number of your journals. The one that I use the most is the networking journal. Like, who am I talking to? Where did I meet them? What did we talk about? Because, at 63, my memory's not what it used to be. But I do journal when I'm stuck on something, like when I'm experiencing a lot of resistance, or I have a lot of fear, or I can't get beyond where I am and I don't know why, then I'll start journaling, and it's really, really helpful.
Okay, so many thoughts came up as you were talking. One of the things I wanted to just underline and highlight, just in case anyone in the back didn't hear it or catch it, you are in your 60s.
Yes.
And you started a company from the age of 60.
Yes.
And you wrote a book.
And I wrote a book.
After you turned 60. So I just want people and you and everyone to notice that a lot of times I hear people talking about like, oh, I'm getting old, or, oh, I've done this, or, oh, it's too late, or, oh,
no,
right? None of the above, right?
None of the above. It is never too late. It is never too late. And that's kind of a cornerstone of my coaching is it's never too late. I like to work with women who are at or nearing retirement age, who want to imagine their next season with joy, purpose, meaning, etc. You have to get beyond your fears like that to do it. That was one of the resistance things I had to writing a book when my coach suggested is like, I'm too old. And she just kind of looked at me, didn't say anything for a while. And I'm like, oh, no, you're right. I'm not.
That was going to be one of my questions was, did you have any resistance to writing a book? Because some people, they have a book in them, right? And they say it all the time. Oh, one of these days I'm going to write a book. Sounds like your coach said, why don't you write a book? And you were like, hold on.
Yeah. When I think about my fear, there have been a lot of big fear stories. Like, I had cancer and my mom has had Alzheimer's, and, there were a number of things to get beyond, but I was very, very surprised by the amount of fear after a 30 some plus career, standing in front of people, running huge projects and being really good at something, that I was afraid to put pen to paper. And I always waited, when I was in technology, I always waited for my parents' Christmas letter to come out to find out what I did for a living, because they didn't really understand it. And one of the things that I used to tell my parents was, I think, I talk, and I write. And that's what I did as a project manager and that sort of thing in technology. I didn't think it was going to be that hard once I sat down, because I had thought, maybe I do have a book in me. But then when she said it, I was like, well, maybe not. I'm too old. Who's going to want to read what I have to say? What do I know about anything that's profound, that would make people want to buy the book? And the amount of fear that came up, it was really surprising, and it was voluminous.
Oh, wow.
And one of them was actually starting a business over 60. My best friend is 10 years older than me, and she retired quite a bit longer ago than I did. And she was disappointed that I was not going to be retired the way she's retired. Because when she first retired, she had some jobs and she did some volunteering and stuff like that. But then when her husband retired, she stopped doing that so that they could travel in a motorhome. And she wanted me to be doing that with her, which I did for a year. And then, had other ideas. One of the hardest things for me was her disappointment. That, I was afraid I was going to lose my best friend over it, which of course I haven't. Right. I shouldn't, of course, it does happen, but it didn't happen in my case.
Yeah.
But it's fears like that, when you start defying expectations. I actually have a live stream, a podcast, if you will, called Defying Expectations Over 60. And when you start defying expectations, you get reactions from other people.
Yeah.
Then, of course, the worthiness, who's going to want to read my book? What is it that I have to say? Even though I've had years of informally coaching people and, talking through things with them, for the both of us, coming up with new ideas, new conclusions, all of that kind of stuff. When you sit down and you think, okay, this is just me, it's only me, it's a little daunting.
Yeah. You really have to tell yourself, it doesn't matter. I'll just do it. I'm just going to write it. Right.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm just going to put it out there.
And I actually tried to quit on myself about 5 times.
Oh, wow.
Oh, yeah. Even up to the funniest part was up until the very last day, I tried to quit on myself, telling myself, this is too hard. Not going to do it. And then the next day I finished it and I'm like, oh, I've done all the chapters, and this huge weight lifted off my shoulders, and I read through it And I'm like, oh, it kind of flows. I'm not going to embarrass myself with this.
Yeah.
And I've been kind of riding high ever since.
That is so amazing. And thank you for being honest and vulnerable and saying that I almost quit on myself 5 times and not that it was daisies and rainbows and a unicorn.
Oh, no.
So yeah, because I know there are people who are in the midst of something right now, maybe writing a book, maybe losing weight, maybe online dating, who knows what. And they are at that point. They have thought of quitting and maybe they did quit and then they restarted, or maybe they are about to quit. How did you not quit for 5 times? How did you overcome the idea of quitting?
Do you know, it's all about the why for me. Remember your motivators. That's my number one technique for moving through fear is remember your motivators. And I thought, because I have a clear statement of vision, like I have a clear vision statement, and it includes having a beautiful home surrounded by beauty, where I love to bring friends and family to entertain, because I'm one of those people, like, I want to live with my friends. If you come and live with me for 4 days or 3 days or a week or something like that, I'm just so happy. And so they're family to me, and I want to bring family and friends to come and live with me. A means to that end, although my husband makes a very good living, I feel like I want to contribute.
Of course.
So a means to that end is having my business. And a means to having a successful business in my head was credibility through the book and that sort of thing. I plan to be a best-selling author by the end of October.
Awesome.
I'm not sure when this is going to air, but I think it'll be right around then.
Yes.
And it all kind of falls together. It's like, well, if I don't do this, then I won't have this, and I won't have this, and I won't be able to do this.
Okay. Good advice. Remember the motivators. And I think the pre-work to that is actually know the motivators, so that when you get ready to quit, when you get the nudge or the urge, like, just let this go to the side, just put this in the back burner. You can say, no, but I really want that. And this is part of that plan.
Yep. And I did that over and over. No, but I really want that. I still want that. I can't quit because I still want that.
Good. Yes. What a good lesson. So was that the hardest part, or is there like a hardest chapter that you had to write while you were going through this?
The hardest chapter that I had to write, really, it was the one about Alzheimer's and my mom, because she passed away in 2019. Yeah, that's 2019, 3 years. And she was just, I'm 5'11", and my mom was 5'11", and we both weighed about the same when we were like this age, 60 something, and which is over 200 pounds. And when she died, she weighed like 96 pounds. She was skin and bones, and it was a 20-year decline for her. So we watched it progress for 2 decades. That was hard to watch. It was hard to write about, because it was like every month there was something new. It wasn't like every day. It wasn't fast decline. So it's hard to convey what that was like. But my fear was so great that I was next. Oh. And I didn't really want to go visit that again.
Yeah.
Because when you write about it, you've got to go back there. I have a chapter about depression. I had a major depressive episode when I was 26. And it's really hard to want to open up that box again.
Yeah.
And so those would be the 2 hardest chapters. And I think it's because the fear of it happening to me or happening again, it would be devastating.
I can hear that. And I can imagine that also for myself, maybe not exactly those examples, but something like that. And it makes me wonder now, and maybe I need to read the book, which I will. Of course
you need to read the book, Bex.
But I'm wondering, is that fear something that you would use one of your courage techniques to work through?
Yeah. So that's interesting that you asked me that, because I write about that in the Alzheimer's chapter as one of the techniques is weigh the options. Okay. So basically, pro-con, I was talking about Alzheimer's all the time. And I wasn't saying if I get Alzheimer's, I was saying when I lose my mind.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it was driving my friends crazy. It was spinning me up all the time. And so I decided to do something about it. I could sit there and worry. So that was my, pro con thing. I could do nothing. And the cons would be, you'll never get away from this thinking. But I went and I found a cognitive psychologist. I think that's what she's called. She gave me a battery of tests.
Okay.
And so I went looking for evidence that I was getting Alzheimer's.
Okay.
And
So you were researching it. Yeah.
I was researching. Yes. And I came away with evidence that I wasn't getting Alzheimer's.
Wow. Love that.
Yeah. So I was still worried.
Sure.
But 6 years later, I did it again. And I did better on this cognitive testing than I did the first time around. And so that's the way I got through it. It's like I do my research, I make my pros and cons. I can sit with it and be miserable, or I can go do something about it. And I did, and it changed the conversation in my head. Mm-hmm. So now I still worry about it a little bit, but I don't worry about it a lot.
I see. That's great. That's super helpful. Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
what would you say if you had to choose one? What is your biggest, or was maybe your biggest fear?
I would say the depression. When I was 26, I don't think a lot of people that young have a lot of perspective about the length of life and what you're going to learn and wisdom and that sort of thing. Although certainly some do. I think my biggest fear would be going into a depressive episode like that. My dad had a friend who lost his life to suicide when he was 70, maybe 75, because he was high functioning and was doing great. And he didn't have a depression bone in his body until he hit a certain point. And then he went into downward spiral and couldn't pull out of it. And so I don't want that.
Yeah. No kidding.
I don't want that for my life. I don't want it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. So And so are you now able to use your Courage Rises techniques to help as that fear sometimes pops up, or as it kind of starts sneaking towards you?
Yes, I am. I use my technique, especially use my motivators. Like, why am I doing any of this?
Yeah.
Not binge watching Netflix,
Which sometimes it's okay to do. I did earlier this week. It was great.
Well, yes, I do it, but I find if I plan it and I say, okay, I'm taking the day off, I can do whatever the heck I want, then it's a little easier because I use that as an avoidance technique when I'm in resistance.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Like I'll binge watch Netflix. I will obsessively play Candy Crush on my phone. I don't want to write my book. Okay.
Oh, interesting. So in that case, you're using it as an escape versus just like as a relaxation or just as like a recharge time. Good. I think that's good to call it out. Yeah. Because I think there is a lot of judgment when we do activities like that and we think we shouldn't. Mm-hmm. But I think I should. Yeah. But not when I'm not as an escape. Yeah.
As an escape. Exactly. Right. Not as an avoidance technique.
Right. Avoiding. Right.
Yeah.
Well, good.
Good. The whole time I was writing the book, I was like, oh, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. So I'll do everything else.
Yeah.
So, but now when I binge watch Netflix, I'm like, great.
Yeah. I wrote a book. I'm going to watch another episode, whatever.
That's right.
I'm quickly detouring from this episode to let you know you can commission a hand-painted, one-of-a-kind portrait of your dog or your friend's dog. These fun and heartwarming works of art are created with acrylic paint on an 8x10 canvas. All you have to do is answer a few questions about the painting that you want, send me the photo of your cute little dog, and pay the calendar fee to get started. When I finish the painting, I will send you a photo of your custom art piece, and your satisfaction is guaranteed. If you like it, pay the balance and get the painting. If you don't love it, or if you've changed your mind, just let me know and we will leave it at that. To see some examples of the dog paintings that I have already created for happy dog moms and dads, or to request your own puppy's portrait, go to bexby.org/dogs. And now let's get back on track with the episode. Right? Yeah. Well, just a few other kinds of questions just to kind of help everyone get to know you a little bit more so that they do think, hey, I need to go get that book. First of all, where do people get the book, or how do people get the book?
So it's on Amazon. Right now it's an ebook, but in a few days there'll be a paperback version. They can get it on Amazon. It's called Courage Rises. If you search for Suki, Suki, Jeffries, Jeffreys, as the author, that's the only book that will pop up. I am an author in collaboration books and 3 other collaboration books, but this is my first solo book. So,
well, congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Suki Jeffries, Courage Rises. And
Nice.
you should find it.
And that was going to be a question here. What do you recommend as far as like books or TV shows or products? So obviously you're recommending, I'm hoping, your own book. And you mentioned Byron Katie and Brooke Castillo.
Yeah.
Are there any other people, practices, places, anything else that when you meet someone, you say, oh, you got to watch this, you got to do this?
Okay, so there's a podcast called Release Your Resistance by Bex Beltran. I do recommend that to people all the time.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and I do a behavioral mastermind. I'm an accredited behavioral superpowers coach, so I can help you with an assessment that uncovers your innate behavioral style. So I'm an influencer and I'm kind of fast-paced, take charge. So if there's a dearth of leadership, I jump in. If nobody's making decisions, I don't mind being up in front of people. I'm extroverted, all of those things. So I have a mastermind that helps you understand your behavioral superpowers and helps you get more things done, which was very, very helpful when I first started my business. Because it was productivity stuff from a book called The 12-Week Year. Highly recommend that.
Okay.
If you're trying to get anything done, whether it's a business or planning a wedding or an event or getting a book done, I highly recommend The 12-Week Year. High Performance Habits by Brendon Burchard. I love that. Oh, anything by Brené Brown.
Oh, yeah.
Her Netflix special was really, really good. One of the phrases from that I use a lot now is the story I'm making up in my head is. So Brené Brown's awesome. I really like Jen Sincero.
Oh, yeah. You are a badass. Yeah.
Yeah. Badass Habits. Yes. All her whole badass series. I love Think and Grow Rich. It's archaic. Yes. I mean, the way it's written is really archaic, but it's really, in my view, the granddaddy of all self-help books because so much is based on it. I recommend the Personal Success Institute, SCI. Okay. They run self-discovery and personal development seminars. Love them.
Well, remember, if anything that you just heard sparked your interest, but then she said something else, you can just rewind 15 seconds, rewind 30 seconds, get out your pen and paper, write it down, take a screenshot of this part on your phone, and then you can come back to it later.
Yes.
Yeah. What about, so you mentioned Brené Brown's comment, this is the story I'm telling myself. Do you have any other kind of mantra, or do you use affirmations for yourself?
I have affirmations. I have them on my wall. I don't use them as often as I thought I would. I tend to be more active about working through my resistance. Like I will take a class or I will work with, I have an incredible energy healer. Her name's Jennifer Farrar. I work with her. So not so much mantras and that sort of thing, just, motivators. My vision statement is clear. I want to play with my grandchildren with ease and joy. I want to have a home that I can entertain in, that's surrounded by beauty. Those things I keep repeating to myself.
It sounds like what you consider your vision statement is kind of what I consider my manifesto. It's like the life that I've created for myself and the life that I want to live, and I can read it to myself and see how it's true. Yeah. Yes. Okay. I love that.
Yeah. Yes. And I practice actually seeing it.
Yes.
It sounds weird to live it as if it has already happened. For me, that's kind of a foreign concept, but I see it in my mind. Like when I see myself moving forward, I actually see my rear end walking onto a stage. I'm in a red dress and I'm walking up to the stage and the curtains are parted and there's lights and an audience out there. And I just see the back of me. And
I can see it too, as you describe it. Yeah. Oh, so great. I love that. So that's kind of maybe a ritual or a routine. But do you have any other rituals or routines that really make your life?
I'm go, go, go. And so I struggle to make time to meditate.
Mm.
And I do love to meditate, but I've been practicing it for about 1.5 years. And I just recently added to my routine in that every 3 days in the morning, I get up at 5 and I sit in the bath for 40 minutes and I play a guided meditation for a little while and then music. And I just relax into it. And so I've got me time, relaxation time, and I'm meditating. I'm clearing my head.
Oh, that
And
sounds lovely.
yeah, I love that. I'm a huge advocate of women who are redefining their lives, especially over 60, because no one's expecting you to do it. You're supposed to be slowing down. A lot of people can't retire like I can retire.
Right.
But it is a very good opportunity for those who are able to reimagine who you want to be. And if you don't like the old story of your life, I learned this from you, Bex, in your podcast. If you don't like the old story, write a new story.
Yeah, totally.
Write a new story. And it may feel weird at first, write something that you can believe and see yourself or hear yourself or think of yourself in a different light. I lived in Australia for a couple of years, and they have a saying, a change is as good as a holiday. And so if you change the orientation of the way you're thinking, you're on holiday and you can start from scratch.
Yes.
Start fresh.
Oh, that's so good. My mom always told me as I was growing up, a change is as good as a rest. I did not know that there was an equivalent Australian expression, but yes, I remembered hearing that. And then I, of course, like we sometimes do, I heard myself say it, as I was older. And it's true.
As we become our mothers.
Yeah. Yes, which I would be lucky. I would be lucky to become my mother. Yes.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find you and find the book?
Okay, so the book's on Amazon, Courage Rises by Suki Jeffries. I have a Facebook page for my business called Courage Rises Page. I'm on Instagram as courage.rises, and I'm on LinkedIn as Courage Rises as well. And remember, my given name is Susan, so some of these are older, and so they say Susan or Suki or whatever. Usually Suki will bring you up something that you can follow to find me. I have a coaching business, as I mentioned before. And if you just want to talk or get to know me better, on my website, which is couragerises.life, LIFE, you can find a thing that says, let's chat, and you can just book some time with me and we can get to know each other better. For no other reason than just to
say hi. Yes. And hi, I loved your book. When's your next one coming out? Right?
Exactly.
Awesome. Well, yeah. And if those were a lot to write down in a short amount of time, you can get to everything that Suki just mentioned at bexb.org/courage rises. So just spell it out, bexb.org/courage rises. And then you can see all the links. And maybe we can even include a link to the book so that people can just click right there and get it. Great. Yeah, well, this has been so fun, Suki. I've loved hearing, and I learned some new things that I didn't know about you before. So this has just been a great conversation.
Thank you. I've loved it. And I am so excited. I can't wait to tell my husband that I'm on Release Your Resistance with Bex Beltran.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, something to aspire to. Maybe other listeners right now are thinking, hey, how do I get on the show?
I think you should. If you're not,
reach out. Thank you so much, Suki, for coming on Release Your Resistance today, and also for being a fan and sharing this podcast with other people. We had such a fun conversation, and I just really appreciate how open and sharing you were and talking about your fears and your courage. I think it was a great conversation. So remember, if you want to see what Suki and I were talking about, you can get a link to her new book, Courage Rises. You can see the links to some of the resources that she mentioned that she loves to recommend to other people. You can see some links to episodes that we alluded to during our conversation. And of course, you can get links to all of Suki's places online, her Instagram, her Facebook page, her website. You can get all of this at bexb.org/Courage Rises. Next week, I have another amazing interview lined up for you. I will be talking with my friend and fellow podcaster, Hope of Gums and Gossip. So make sure you're subscribed or on my email list so you can hear that episode too. Thanks again for listening. I will talk with you next week. This has been Release Your Resistance. Thank you for listening. If you like this podcast, make sure you're subscribed and leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, think about someone who you know who would love this episode and share it with them. There should be a share button on your app if you're listening to this on your phone. If you'd like to continue this conversation one-on-one or in real time, come visit me on my site at bexb.org to see how we can work together.